Kirtan is sacred music, pretty much from India. How would you define it beyond that?
Yeah. So in India, it actually has a fairly broad definition. It can mean to recite, to sing, it can be poetry, it can be music. In the West, it's sometimes more narrowly interpreted as call and response, a particular traditional style, a bit like in the Catholic Church. I think you were Catholic growing up, as I was, like Lord have mercy, and then the congregation says, Lord have mercy. So it's that kind of thing. I sometimes use call and response, but I also just use sing-along style. A friend of mine calls it all skate, when it's an all skate and everybody just skates together. And I like to do that because I find myself that it's the continuous sound that's flowing through you, that's flowing through an entire group, when you're singing in a group of people, that I find really raises the energy. And it's a beautiful thing to sing and then have a response and have that back and forth. But I find that in many cases, that if you want to just bring up the energy and the experience for everyone, I will often just sing continuously. So Kirtan for me, is just singing sacred music. There are people who, there's a man who is a Jewish rabbi, and he calls it, what does he call it? Hebrew Kirtan? He has a word for it, but he's singing in Hebrew. There's a bit of a revival among young Jews now, where they're bringing back, the idea of singing as a group and having, the congregation participating more. There's also someone who does Celtic Kirtan, which I think is, an Irish flair, English, Gaelic, those kind of things. So it can be used in any tradition, and that is pretty ubiquitous, through most traditions, that there's some form of group singing. So this is mostly Hindu, mostly Sanskrit that I sing, and then sometimes there's something that's Jewish or something that is in English or another tradition.
So you've actually led some chanting right here in our sanctuary before, and you started really having to kind of do a deep dive back into Sanskrit and the Eastern tradition with the deities that we sing to. Yet, then you started developing your own, sometimes with the same Vedic names that we know, yet also things in English. So
Right.
Tell us about the evolution of how you went from really focusing on kind of the Eastern Indian Kirtan to now bringing this new flavor of your creativity to the West.
When I started, and here we are in Montana,
Right.
You're based in Livingston, I'm based in Bozeman, a town about 30 miles or something away. And it was a very new thing in this area. So I found that people were a little overwhelmed with having a long form Sanskrit. So what I would do is study passages that might be 8 or 10 or 16 lines long, and then I would transliterate, which is fantastic online now, where you can do that with, there's Google Translate, but there's also specific ones that are for Sanskrit. And I would try to take out what was the core meaning, and also focus on some of the things that were easier for Westerners to pronounce. And then I would create a mantra that was just using maybe 2 lines out of that. So I would simplify it a bit. I feel like the real power is the seed syllables, which are single syllables that are a fundamental sound, and the names of God. So a lot of the chants that I would do would just be the name of a particular deity, a goddess, Shiva, and then words like Om, Shanti, things that were easy to assimilate in the West. So I sort of went from taking the simplified things, and then as I got more familiar and comfortable with Sanskrit, then I started learning some of the more traditional ones that are more complex. And then, as you say, there are people who will move into an Eastern practice because they are moving away from a Western practice. But that wasn't where I was coming from. I was coming from trying to integrate all of it and to see, the fundamental truth, the consciousness of Christ that is in Krishna as well as in Jesus Christ. So for me, there was no conflict. And in fact, when I started studying all of the brain science, what I discovered was when you are speaking or singing in your native tongue, whatever that is, and for you and I, that would be English, that it is activating different parts of the brain. So the beauty of Sanskrit is that it's a universal spiritual language. I could go to Germany or Russia or anywhere and sing a mantra in Sanskrit, and it's all the same for everyone. It's just a universal language for spirituality and for yoga. But when one of us is communicating or singing in our native language, you're contacting a very deep part of yourself. For example, my husband is Norwegian. So when he's under stress, say you're standing in a grocery line and there's all these people behind you and you're trying to count money, he is unte tre, he starts counting in Norwegian because that is what he knew. He came to this country in his late 20s. So that is what's deep for him. And the same thing is true for us, when we're singing English. So the Sanskrit, sometimes I find that the disadvantage is that I can get disconnected from the meaning. And that's okay, because the vibration, the sound is there and it's still acting. But I have found when I sing in English that it does connect to an emotional side. So when I'm really singing about, God and the beauty in nature, for example, it connects in a different way. So I like having both of those, and that's how it evolved. That, I often will do in something that is mostly a Western style, then I'll always want to throw in a few that are Eastern. For example, I did some things on Sundays for a while. Sunday, sacred songs in the park on Sunday. I did that a few summers in Bozeman. And so that would be a lot of English things, just non-denominational. But then we would always throw in something for Surya, who is the god of the sun in the East, because it was Sunday.
Right.
And then when I would do things that were mostly Kirtan style or mostly Eastern, then I would try to put at least one in there that was English as well.